We thought we found our dream home, a fresh start in a quiet neighborhood. But the signs were there from the start, the strange smell, the scratched-up locks, the hidden notes warning us to stay alert. Then came Carl, the former owner who didn't just linger in memory, he lingered in person. And when the knocks started, we realized leaving might be the only way to stay alive. The first night in the new house was quiet, almost too quiet. My wife, Renee, kept saying how blessed we were. Big backyard, a decent school district, and a mortgage that didn't feel like robbery. I smiled, kissed her forehead, and tried to believe her. Moving out of the city had been her dream. For me, it felt like stepping into someone else's world. A world that wasn't meant for people who looked like us. The house still smelled faintly of paint and lemon cleaner, but there was something under that, something stale, like an old coat left in the rain and never dried. I noticed it when we walked in with the movers, that earthy, almost sour smell. Renee brushed it off, said the place just needed airing out. I opened windows, let the warm Georgia breeze in, but the scent lingered like a whisper in the corners. By the second day, I started paying attention to the little things. The locks on the doors were scratched up, like someone had fought to keep them shut. There was a deadbolt on the inside of the bedroom closet. And then there were the notes, small post-its tucked in odd places. Behind the bathroom mirror. Under the sink. One said, "Do not let him in." Another, "Don't trust the voices." Renee laughed when I showed her, said it must have been some paranoid old man. I tried to laugh too, but the handwriting, jagged and dark, stuck in my mind. On the third evening, I met him. Or maybe he met me. I was unloading boxes in the garage when a man's voice called from the driveway. "You're the new folks, huh?" I looked up to see this tall, wiry guy standing there like he'd grown from the gravel. Sunburnt skin, gray stubble, eyes that didn't blink enough. He wore a faded baseball cap and a smile that didn't reach those eyes. "Yeah," I said, wiping sweat from my brow. "We just moved in." He stared at me for a long second, then spat on the ground. "Name's Carl. This was my house." His tone wasn't friendly, wasn't casual. It was flat, like a fact I had no right to argue with. My stomach tightened. "Oh," I managed. "Well, it's ours now." He grinned at that, a slow curl of lips that made my skin crawl. "Paper says so. But paper don't know everything." Then he turned, walked back down the driveway like he owned it, leaving dusty footprints that faded into the road. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there listening to the creaks and hums of a house that still didn't feel like mine. Around midnight, something thudded against the front door. Not a knock, a heavy, deliberate thump. My chest froze. Renee stirred beside me, but didn't wake. I slipped out of bed, heart hammering, and crept to the front window. Nothing. Just the dark road and the whisper of cicadas. But when I checked the door in the morning, there were muddy boot prints on the porch. The same size as Carl's. The next day, Renee was on her Zoom calls while I worked from the dining table. Every few minutes, I'd glance at the window, half expecting to see Carl's gaunt figure out there. Nothing. Just the street, empty and still. Maybe I was overreacting, I told myself. Maybe he was just bitter about losing the house. That would make anyone salty. By late afternoon, I decided to tackle the backyard. The grass was knee-high, wildflowers choking the fence. As I hacked through the green, I noticed something: holes. Small, shallow pits scattered near the tree line, like someone had started digging and stopped. My gut clenched. I walked closer, crouched down. Inside one of the holes was a plastic bag. I pulled it out with the edge of the rake, careful not to touch it. Inside were photos, dozens of them, of this house. Some from the outside, some from inside, all printed on old, curling paper. But what made my throat dry was that in almost every photo, there was a man standing in the frame. Carl. Sometimes he was in the background, barely visible through a doorway. Other times he was closer, right in the center, staring dead at the camera. And in one photo, he was in the master bedroom closet. The same closet with the inside deadbolt. I shoved the bag back and covered it with dirt. My hands were trembling by the time I walked inside. Renee was on the couch, laughing at something on her laptop. I didn't say a word. What could I say? That I found proof the previous owner was still haunting this place, just not in the way ghosts do? That night, it happened again. Another thump at the door, harder this time. I grabbed the baseball bat I'd kept by the bed since we moved in. When I reached the living room, I froze. The door was wide open. Not unlocked, open. A faint draft slid over my skin. Outside, the porch light flickered. No sign of Carl. No sign of anyone. I shut the door and threw the deadbolt, my heart pounding like a war drum. I checked every window, every room. When I came back to the front, there it was, a note. Slipped under the door while I was searching the house. It said, "You can't lock me out. This is still my home." I woke Renee, told her we were leaving first thing in the morning. She didn't argue. We packed in silence, tossing clothes into bags, barely speaking. Around 3 a.m., we loaded the car and drove. The house loomed behind us, porch light flickering like a dying eye. In the rearview mirror, for just a second, I swear I saw him, standing on the porch, grinning that same grin. Watching us go. We never went back. I thought I'd finally found stability, a quiet rental in a calm neighborhood. But the warnings were in the silence, the way neighbors stared, the scratches on the back door. Then came the shadow on my porch, and the voice whispering through the dark. That house wasn't empty when I moved in. And I'll never forget what he said when he found me. When I first saw the house, it looked like salvation. After 6 months of bouncing between overpriced apartments and dealing with landlords who acted like they owned my soul, I finally found a place that seemed peaceful. 2 bedrooms, a small front porch, a yard with a big oak tree casting shade like an umbrella in the Georgia heat. The rent was cheap, too cheap, but the photos looked good, and the woman who answered the listing sounded eager to have someone reliable move in fast. Quiet neighborhood, she'd said over the phone. Older folks mostly. You'll have no trouble. I signed the papers the same day. No credit check, no background hassle. Just first month's rent in cash and a quick handshake. Something about that should have rung alarm bells, but I was tired of couch surfing. I just wanted stability. When I pulled up with the last of my boxes, the sun was dipping low, painting the sky in bruised purples and oranges. The house stood there, smaller than I expected, paint chipped along the siding, windows that needed a good scrubbing. But it was mine, for now. I could breathe. I parked my old Camry in the cracked driveway and started unloading. Inside smelled strange. Not bad, just old. Like dust and wood soaked in rainwater years ago. I told myself it was the kind of smell that would disappear once I cleaned. The living room was bare except for a heavy beige curtain drawn tight over the front window. The landlord, her name was Mrs. Hargrove, had left a couple of chairs stacked in the corner and a note on the kitchen counter, "Welcome home. Call if you need anything." Underneath, a phone number scrawled in shaky handwriting. I worked until dark, unpacking essentials, setting up my mattress in the smaller bedroom since the larger one felt off. The closet door in there wouldn't stay shut. It had a deadbolt on the inside. Who puts a lock like that inside a closet? I laughed it off, but my stomach didn't get the joke. I shut that door tight and left it for another day. Around midnight, as I lay on the mattress scrolling through my phone, I heard something. Not outside, inside. A soft creak, like weight shifting on old wood. I held my breath, listening. The house settled with a long sigh, and I told myself that was it. Old houses make noise. Still, I slept with the lamp on. The next morning, I walked the neighborhood. Every yard was trimmed neat, flags on porches, wind chimes singing in the breeze. Folks stared when I waved. Some waved back, polite but stiff. Others didn't move at all, just watched me, eyes flat, like they were waiting for me to cross a line I couldn't see. By noon, I was back inside, cleaning the kitchen when I noticed scratches around the back door lock. Fresh ones. Not deep, but enough to catch the light. I ran my thumb over them, uneasy. Did Mrs. Hargrove know about this? Or was it from before? I decided to let it go. The place was cheap. Maybe that's why. That night, the noise came again. Louder this time. A thud from somewhere near the front door. I froze, heart pounding, and crept out of bed. The house was dark except for the glow of a street lamp leaking through the curtain. When I reached the door, I saw it, a shadow on the other side. A man's silhouette, tall and still. I didn't move. Neither did he. Then, slowly, the shadow turned and walked away. I didn't sleep after that. I barely spoke to anyone the next day. Didn't tell my folks, didn't call Mrs. Hargrove. What would I say? Hey, someone stood outside my door for a while last night? I could already hear her saying it was just a neighbor, or some kid. Still, every time I looked at that front door, my chest tightened. That evening, I sat on the porch for a while, trying to act normal. The street was calm. No cars passing, just the whir of cicadas and the occasional bark of a dog in the distance. Across the road, an older white man was watering his lawn. He didn't wave when he noticed me. Just stared for a beat too long before turning his back. By sunset, I was back inside with the doors locked. I dragged a chair under the knob like I'd seen in movies. Felt silly doing it, but when the sun goes down, courage shrinks. I told myself I'd look for a new place in the morning. Maybe eat the deposit, chalk it up to bad luck. Around midnight, I woke to a sound that didn't belong. It wasn't the creak of settling wood or the hum of the fridge, it was the click of a lock turning. Slow, deliberate. My blood froze. I reached for the bat I'd kept near the mattress since last night. The chair was still braced under the door. How could anyone be inside? Then came the footsteps. Soft at first, then heavier, moving down the hallway toward the smaller bedroom, toward me. I held my breath, clutching that bat so tight my knuckles ached. The steps stopped outside my door. Silence stretched so long I thought my heart would burst. A voice broke it. Low, calm, almost tender. You sleepin' in my room. I wanted to run, scream, anything, but I couldn't move. The doorknob jiggled once, twice, like he was testing it. Then came another sound, quieter but worse than any knock, the slow scrape of something metal against wood. He was trying to pry the lock. And all I could think about was that deadbolt in the other bedroom closet. Who was that meant for? To keep someone out, or to keep someone in? Adrenaline kicked in. I yanked the window open, didn't care about the screen, just tore it out and dove into the night air. Hit the ground hard, knees screaming, but I ran barefoot down the street like my life depended on it, because it did. I didn't look back, not until I hit the main road and saw headlights. A car slowed. A woman rolled down her window, fear flashing across her face when she saw me. I must have looked wild, barefoot and shaking, clutching a bat like a lifeline. Help me, I gasped. Please. By the time the cops arrived, the house was empty. No signs of forced entry. No footprints, no fingerprints, nothing. They asked if I'd been drinking, asked if I had a record. When I told them about the voice, they traded looks that said everything, another black man with a story they didn't believe. I left everything I owned in that house. Clothes, TV, my grandmother's photo albums, gone. I never called Mrs. Hargrove, never went back for the deposit. I didn't want anything tying me to that place. Sometimes I wonder who was in there that night. Or maybe the better question is, how many people walked out of that house before me, and how many didn't? When Renee and I moved into our first house, we thought it was the start of everything we'd worked for. But the neighbors' stares, the late-night knocks, and the footprints outside told a different story. Then came the voice through the bedroom door, a voice that still chills me every time I close my eyes. We thought leaving would save us. We were wrong. The day we moved in, the air was heavy with summer heat, the kind that makes your shirt stick to your back before noon. Renee kept saying how lucky we were, how it felt like a fresh start. I wanted to believe her. After years of apartment living, this house was supposed to be our reward, a quiet street, a fenced yard, 3 bedrooms, and just enough charm to make it feel like home. The neighbors didn't exactly roll out a welcome mat. A few waved stiffly, most just stared. The street was neat, almost too neat, with trimmed hedges and American flags hanging from perfect porches. Every house looked like it had been stamped from the same mold. Ours was the oldest on the block, white paint peeling in strips, shutters hanging loose, and an old oak stretching its roots toward the porch like it was trying to pull the house under. Inside, it smelled off. Not foul, not rot, but stale, like a closed-up attic. Renee brushed it off, humming as she unpacked dishes. I tried to do the same, but there was something about the quiet that pressed in from all sides. No laughter from kids, no hum of lawnmowers, just stillness, thick and unnatural. That night, as we lay on the mattress on the floor of our new bedroom, I couldn't sleep. The hum of cicadas outside faded, replaced by a deeper silence that made every creak of the house echo like a gunshot. At some point, I dozed off, until I heard it. A knock. Soft at first, like fingertips brushing the wood. Then firmer, deliberate. 3 knocks. I sat up, heart pounding, and stared at the bedroom door. Another set of knocks, this time, from the front door. I shook Renee awake. She blinked, disoriented, then froze when she heard it too. Maybe it's a neighbor, she whispered. But it was nearly 2 a.m. Who comes knocking at 2 a.m.? I crept through the hallway, gripping a flashlight like a weapon. The living room was empty, bathed in shadows. The knocks stopped. I peeked through the curtain. Nothing. Just the dark street and that oak tree swaying gently in the wind. The next morning, we laughed it off. Told ourselves it must have been a branch or the house settling. We unpacked, played music, tried to make it feel like home. But when I stepped out back to check the yard, my stomach turned. There, in the dirt under the kitchen window, were footprints. Big ones. And they weren't mine. I didn't tell Renee about the footprints. She was finally smiling again, moving boxes, talking about where to put the couch, and I didn't want to ruin that. But the truth sat heavy in my chest. Someone had been standing under that window, watching. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling we weren't alone. I double-checked the locks, even jammed a chair under the front doorknob like my grandma used to do when she didn't trust the deadbolt. Renee laughed when she saw it. "You're acting like we're in a horror movie," she teased. I tried to smile back, but my gut said this wasn't a joke. We climbed into bed, and for a while, it was quiet, too quiet. The kind that makes you strain your ears just to hear something normal. Then came the sound. Slow, deliberate creaks from the hallway floorboards. Renee's hand clutched mine under the blanket. "You heard that, right?" she whispered. I nodded, every muscle in my body locked tight. The footsteps grew louder, moving closer to our bedroom door, then stopped. Silence stretched so thin I thought I'd snap. Then, a shadow passed under the door. Someone was standing on the other side. I swallowed hard, grabbed the bat I'd left leaning against the dresser, and eased toward the door. My pulse was a drum in my ears. I reached for the knob, ready to yank it open, when a voice broke the silence. Calm. Male. Close enough that it felt like breath on the wood. You don't belong here. Renee gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. My throat tightened so hard I couldn't speak. I yanked the door open, bat raised, nothing. The hallway was empty. Just that old floor groaning under my feet. We didn't sleep after that. We sat in the living room with every light on until dawn. I told Renee about the footprints. Her face went pale, like I'd snatched the air from her lungs. By morning, we were packing. We didn't talk about it, didn't argue. We just moved fast, shoving clothes and boxes into the car like the house was on fire. I ran back in for one last look, keys in my pocket, ready to lock the door forever. That's when I saw it. On the wall of our bedroom, scrawled in something dark, were words that hadn't been there before. You can't leave. You're already home. We drove away without looking back. I don't know who, or what, wrote that. But some nights, when the wind hits just right, I swear I still hear that voice. I thought moving into that house would be the fresh start my son and I needed. At first, it was just strange sounds in the night, soft tapping, floorboards groaning. Then Marcus told me about the man with no eyes. And when I finally saw him, standing in that dark hallway, I understood one thing: we were never meant to live there. When I moved into the house with my son, Marcus, I told myself this was the fresh start we both needed. The divorce had been messy, and every time I looked at him, 8 years old, quiet, too quiet for a kid his age, I felt the weight of what he'd been through. So when I found this place, a 2-bedroom house on the edge of a quiet town, I signed the lease the same day. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. That's what mattered. The first day felt normal enough. Marcus spent most of it sitting on the porch steps, legs swinging, watching the road like he was waiting for someone who'd never come. The movers dropped off our things, and I spent the evening unpacking while he wandered from room to room, like he was mapping the space in his head. By nightfall, the place smelled like fresh paint and dust, and for the first time in a long time, I let myself believe we'd be okay. But that first night, I heard it. It started as a soft tapping, like fingertips against a wall. I thought it was the wind, maybe a tree branch brushing the siding. But when I stepped outside, the air was still. No branches near the walls. No neighbors around at this hour. I shook it off and went back inside. Marcus was asleep in his room, his nightlight casting a warm glow across the floor. I stood there for a moment, watching his chest rise and fall, before heading to my own room. The tapping came back. Louder this time. Not random, but steady. Tap. Pause. Tap tap. Pause. Like it wanted me to notice. It was coming from the hallway. My throat tightened as I stepped out of bed, every nerve on edge. The sound stopped. I waited, holding my breath, but the silence that followed felt heavier than the noise had. The next morning, Marcus asked me something over breakfast that stopped me cold. "Daddy, why was that man in the hall last night?" I froze, spoon halfway to my mouth. "What man?" "The one who was walking funny." He kept looking at me, but he didn't have eyes. Marcus said it so casually, like he was describing a dream. But his small hands were trembling as he held his cereal spoon. I forced a smile, told him it was just a bad dream. Inside, my stomach was in knots. That night, I pushed his bed against the wall and left the hallway light on. Then I sat up in my own room with every light blazing, listening. At 1:13 a.m., it started again. The tapping. Then a new sound, slow, dragging footsteps across the hallway floor. And Marcus whispered my name from his room, voice shaking. "Daddy, he's back." I was out of bed before he finished the sentence, heart pounding so hard it felt like my ribs might split. The hall light flickered as I stepped into the doorway. Marcus was sitting up in bed, knees to his chest, his eyes locked on the dark stretch of hallway beyond me. I gripped the baseball bat I'd leaned against the dresser earlier and whispered, "Stay here." My voice sounded steady, but inside I was shaking. The sound came again, tap, tap tap, followed by that slow drag, like someone pulling one foot behind them. I flicked on every light in the hall, expecting to see someone standing there. But it was empty. Just peeling wallpaper and floorboards that groaned under my weight. I checked the bathroom, the coat closet, even the crawl space door. Nothing. When I went back to Marcus's room, his face was pale, his little chest heaving. "Where did you see him?" I asked. His eyes darted to the hallway. He was standing by the door. He had no eyes, Daddy. Just holes. I didn't know what to say. I told him to sleep in my bed that night. He clung to me like a shadow, his small fingers gripping my arm until they ached. By morning, I'd convinced myself it was stress. Kids imagine things. Houses make sounds. But when I stepped into the hallway, my stomach dropped. There were smudges on the wall near Marcus's door. Long, dark streaks trailing downward. Like someone had pressed their hands there and dragged them low. I scrubbed the marks away, kept my mouth shut. What was I supposed to do? Call the cops? Tell them a ghost was tapping on my walls? No. I decided we'd sleep in the same room again. Just one more night, I told myself. Then maybe a hotel. That night, I left the TV on in the bedroom, volume low, hoping the noise would drown out whatever I'd been hearing. Marcus curled beside me, already half asleep. For a while, it was quiet. Almost peaceful. Then the TV flickered, static swallowing the screen like it had been yanked from the air. And then, from the hallway, a whisper. So faint I thought it was the wind at first. "Give him back." I froze. My mouth went dry. "Marcus," I whispered, shaking him gently, "wake up." But before he could stir, something slammed against the bedroom door so hard the frame shook. Once. Twice. 3 times. The sound wasn't like knocking, it was like someone throwing their whole weight into it. Marcus screamed and buried his face against me. I grabbed the bat and yanked the door open. The hall was empty, but the light was gone. Every bulb had burned out, leaving nothing but darkness stretching all the way to the front door. And in that darkness, just beyond the reach of the bedroom lamp, I saw him. Tall. Thin. Head tilted like his neck couldn't hold the weight. His face. I'll never forget his face, because there wasn't one. Just smooth, pale skin where eyes and a mouth should have been. He took one step forward. That's all it took. I slammed the door and dragged the dresser in front of it. We didn't wait for morning. I called my cousin, told him to bring his truck. By sunrise, we were gone. I never went back for the furniture. Never looked inside that house again. But sometimes, late at night, when the house we live in now gets too quiet, I swear I hear it. That tapping. Faint, patient, like it knows I'm still listening. We thought renting a house off campus would be the best decision of our college lives. But from the first night, something felt wrong, strange whispers, doors that opened on their own, and that sour smell we couldn't escape. Then came the footprints, and Tasha's words that still haunt me, they never left. We thought renting a house off campus would be the upgrade we needed. No more paper-thin dorm walls, no more shared bathrooms, no more campus security breathing down our necks every time we had friends over. Just 4 of us, me, Jordan, Tasha, and Devin. splitting rent on an old two-story house 5 minutes from the university. When we pulled up the first time, it looked perfect. A wide porch, big yard, and enough space so we weren't on top of each other. The paint was peeling a little, the shutters were crooked, but for students on a budget, it was a dream. The landlord, a short white man named Mr. Clay, handed us the keys with a smile that never touched his eyes. "Take good care of her," he said, tapping the doorframe like it was alive. "Old houses got memories." We laughed it off, joking about haunted vibes as we carried in boxes. Inside, it smelled like old wood and cleaning chemicals. The floors creaked like they were whispering with every step. Upstairs, the bedrooms were lined up along a narrow hallway, and at the end was a door that didn't quite close all the way, like the frame was warped. Behind it was a small storage room with a single light bulb that flickered when you pulled the chain. The first week was fine. Classes, late-night study sessions, beer in red cups, it felt normal. Then the noises started. At first, we blamed the house settling. A creak here, a thump there. But it kept happening at night, after everyone had gone to bed. Doors clicking softly like someone was testing the locks. Footsteps in the hallway when I knew everyone was asleep. One night, I got up to grab water and saw Tasha standing at the end of the hall, facing that storage room. The door was open now, light bulb swinging slightly like someone had just brushed past it. "Tasha," I whispered, heart pounding. "You good?" She didn't answer. Just stood there, shoulders tense, staring into the dark room. When I touched her arm, she jumped like she'd been shocked. "I thought I heard someone," she said, voice shaking. Like whispering. We searched the room. Nothing inside but dust, an old trunk, and a smell I couldn't place, something damp and sour that clung to my throat. We shut the door, but later that night, lying in bed, I could have sworn I heard it too. A voice. Faint, sliding under the floorboards like smoke. "You shouldn't be here." After that night, none of us joked about the house anymore. We started locking our doors, keeping the hallway light on. But it didn't stop the noises. The whispers came back, soft at first, then clearer, like they were learning how to reach us. Sometimes it sounded like laughter, low and cruel, bleeding through the walls when the house was silent. 2 nights later, Devin swore he saw someone standing in the upstairs hallway. "Tall guy," he said, voice shaking as he paced the living room at 3 a.m., skinny. Just standing there, like he was waiting. We searched the house again. Every closet, every window. Nothing. But that smell was back, the same sour, wet odor Tasha and I had noticed in the storage room. Only this time, it was stronger. It seemed to seep from the walls, making the air heavy. We opened the windows, lit candles, anything to mask it. Didn't help. The breaking point came a week later. We were in the kitchen, eating takeout, trying to laugh it off when we heard the thud upstairs. Heavy, like a body hitting the floor. We froze. Then came the sound of footsteps, slow, dragging, moving from one end of the hall to the other. Jordan grabbed a bat. I grabbed a knife. We crept up the stairs together, hearts pounding. The hallway was empty. The storage room door was open again. The light bulb inside glowed faintly, swinging like a pendulum. And on the floor, just past the doorway, were footprints. Bare, wet, dark like they'd been made in mud, or something worse. They led down the hall, to Tasha's room. We burst inside. She was sitting on the floor, knees pulled to her chest, whispering something over and over. "He said we don't belong here. He said, they never left." When she finally looked up, her eyes were wide, almost vacant. "There's more than one," she whispered. "They're under us." We left that night with nothing but the clothes on our backs. Drove to a motel on the edge of town and never looked back. Later, we learned the house had been a boarding home back in the 60s. 3 students went missing there in 1972. Never found. Sometimes I wonder if they're still in that house. Or if they followed us. Because even now, lying awake in a different city, I swear I hear it sometimes, that faint, wet whisper, sliding through the dark. You shouldn't be here. Thanks so much for watching. Your support truly means the world to me. Every like, every comment helps this channel grow and keeps me going. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new upload. My dream right now is to reach 100 subscribers, and with your help, I know it's possible. See you in the next one.